Welcome to Franchise Empires, where aspiring entrepreneurs learn exactly what it takes to become a successful franchise owner, from one location to 10 and beyond. I'm the Wolf of Franchises. Hey everyone, it's the Wolf. Today on the show we have Kevin Wilson, the founder and CEO of multi-brand franchise platform Buzz Franchise Brands. Kevin got his start in franchising back in the 90s when he quit his corporate consulting job to start a bagel franchise with his friends. Since then, his professional career has taken him to South Africa, Mexico, and then back to America, where he's now building one of the most impressive multi-brand franchise companies in America. I hope you enjoy.
The Wolf of Franchises is the CEO of Wolfpack Franchising, as well as a creator at Workweek Media. All opinions expressed by the Wolf and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Wolfpack Franchising or Workweek. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The Wolf, Workweek, and Wolfpack Franchising may maintain positions in the franchises discussed on this podcast.
Yeah, so, I guess I kind of want to start at the beginning because you've had such an interesting career. I know you worked at Bain, and then you left to start what became a bagel franchise. I don't know if you intended to franchise it from the get-go, but I'd first want to start at what drove you, because, you know, Bain, I actually have a brother who works at Boston Consulting Group, so I'm aware of like that world and how hard it is to get a position at those companies, and the career path you're on is obviously, you know, pretty spectacular. So yeah, what just drove you to say, you know what, I'm going to put this on pause and leave it and start a bagel shop? You know, like what was the psychology there?
You know, I think part of it was I was always really entrepreneurial as a kid. And I viewed Bain, and you're right about Bain. I mean, it was a tough place to get a job at. Once you got there, it was a tough place to work. There were long hours. You were around a lot of really capable people. And I liked it, and I felt like it was really a continuation of my education. But what I really had passion for was starting my own business. And, you know, one of the things with Bain, I was traveling all over the place and had the opportunity to try all these different bagel shops when I traveled. You know, there was Noah's Bagels on the West Coast, H&H up where you're from in New York. And It was nothing like that in Dallas. So I thought that would be pretty cool to start something. I think there was one bagel store at the time in all of Dallas. And so with my brother and another good friend, we opened our first location. And the goal wasn't really, we weren't sure. I mean, we weren't sure how we were going to grow. We just added a store, we added another store, and then we began to learn about franchising. A guy named Joe Croce at CC's Pizza, he was the founder of CC's. So met him and learned a little bit more about it, and we decided to jump into franchising.
Interesting. Was the CC's founder, was he based in Dallas at the time? Is that how you met him?
He was in Carrollton, Texas, and actually a lawyer that we got introduced to help us with our franchise documents didn't work for CC's, so made the introduction and just really spent some time with him and learned what he had learned about franchising, and tried not to repeat some of the mistakes he had made. We've made a whole bunch of different mistakes,
of course.
But it was fun. It was great. I mean, we were young. I was 20, 27, 28, something like that. I was pretty young.
Cool. No, I mean, I love it. I love the kind of just the chutzpah, and I think there's something about young entrepreneurs. Like I imagine you and your brother and your friend, where you don't necessarily have like a bit, not to say that you didn't have a business plan, but you kind of just like, let's just do it and figure it out. There's like that energy where I think as people, maybe they lose almost like that. It's like a beautiful naivete effectively, you know, when people start a business. So
I think that's right. I mean, you know, I was newly married. My brother and my friend weren't married. So you didn't have a lot of responsibilities. You were living for the moment a little bit. Yeah. We talk about it even to this day when the three of us, we're all still very close. And we talk about those times when we just, you know, we're sort of flying by the seat of our pants, making a lot of things up as we went along. And every day was new. And we'd work like heck too. I mean, we're working.
I imagine.
So
yeah. What was, if you can recall, what was franchising even like back then? Obviously now with the internet, and I don't think FTDs were a thing back in the 90s, correct?
Yeah, they were called UFOCs at the time, Uniform Franchise Offering Circulars.
It's a mouthful.
It was a mouthful. People sort of reversed it and had a different acronym for it. But I ran the company, but I was also doing franchise sales. I was the CFO doing the numbers, and it was. And then we were negotiating leases. We were doing build outs. We had dedicated a lot of, but it was just the three of us, and it was a bootstrap startup too. Like we did not really raise money, not like what I'm doing now, where we raised a good amount of money to start. It was the three of us doing everything, and so we didn't have the really formal training systems that we do now. There was just a lot of things. The key thing, we found people that wanted to sort of jump on it with us, and we were going to learn together, and it worked out. It was fun.
Amazing. Yeah. I would have, it's just so interesting to me, obviously with the internet now, and like there's, most of the, let's call it franchise sales / lead gen, is done via, just online resources. So, it just fascinates me basically like what marketing would have looked like back then.
It was a lot of local marketing. We would do direct mail drops. We didn't have any, there's a very formal process now for recruiting franchisees. Back then, it's just, why don't you show up? We'll put you in the store for the day. Usually a Friday morning, we put you on the cash register, and you see all these people coming through the store, and you got to figure out if you like it. If you like it, and we liked you, you're a franchisee.
Wow.
So,
oh man,
no marketing webinars, no operational webinars. I mean, it was just, do you like us? Do we like you? Do you like the business? Okay, it's not complicated. Let's sign the agreement. We'll find you a lease, build up the store, and the same thing will happen. The customers will show up.
Yeah. Holy crap. That's funny. Love it. It's simple. It's definitely,
simple.
Nice and simple. All right. Well, the thing that I really found interesting when I was kind of learning about your, let's call it like origin story is, I think, what was it? It was called Benny's Bagels, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew it to around, I think, like 28 or 30 stores. Yeah. And I don't know if either you kind of sold your shares or you guys decided to sell the entire business and franchise. But ultimately, you moved to South Africa for a job for an airline company.
Yeah.
I'm just, one, like you said, you're married. I know a lot of people in my social circle who just, let's call it what it is. A lot of people don't necessarily take risks or take leaps. You moved to a totally separate continent. Like what? Yeah. And you left behind what appeared to be a growing franchise. So, yeah, what was going on there?
Yeah, it was interesting because when we'd grown, like you said, about 30 stores. The three of us, looked at each other and said, it's probably time. I think my brother wanted to move back to. I'm originally from Canada. He wanted to move back, and we all looked at him. And we said, maybe now's the time to sell the business. And so while we were doing that, my wife also worked at Bain & Company. And just to be clear, I didn't actually go from bagels to airlines, although I did. I had some background in airlines when I was at Bain & Company. And so that was the tie-in. And so I got recruited. There was a Bain & Company, former Bain & Company partner that had just been named CEO of South African Airways. He was recruiting a team, his management team. He had a dedicated Bain team that was doing work for him down there, but he wanted to recruit executives. And so he hired me to run the cargo operation. And I have to admit, when I went down and I interviewed with him and the team, and I saw Johannesburg at the time was a really dangerous place. It was a dangerous neighborhood. It was, I think it was sort of on the scale of where Baghdad was at the time. It was not an easy decision. Like I made a lot of decisions. That wasn't an easy one, but I said, you know what, if, somebody told me once, if the opportunities are there, just be willing to say yes and make it happen. Just jump in there and see what would, I bit off a lot. It was fun, but I went from just a small operation, with two partners to running a much larger organization that historically really hadn't made money. The airline industry is a very tough industry to make money in. So, I don't regret it. I mean, South Africa, the overall experience was wonderful. South Africa was incredible. The people down there were wonderful. I learned a lot, work like heck, but it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Just and like not only the business side of it, but just the personal side to take that jump and move into a totally different culture and city. I mean, I can't imagine. I moved from New York to Austin, as we were talking about before recording, and that to me that was like I had to like go through kind of some mental the mental ringer in a way to just be like let's take that leap. But Dallas to South Africa is a whole nother level. Well, I am curious, because today, right, everyone I spoke to, I talked to a lot of people within the franchise industry, and, a few folks was like, oh, yeah, I'm interviewing Kevin Wilson of Buzz Franchise Brands in a few days. And every single person, I've heard a lot of great things about him, like, awesome guy, like, super impressive what he's built. So you are very highly revered in the industry, in the franchise industry, but at the same time, you almost have this, you've had this separate career where you did the South African Airways turnaround and were a big part of that there. And then I know at one point you, I believe, did you found that airline in Mexico, Volaris, that is, it's on the New York Stock Exchange with over $1 billion market cap.
Right.
Is that, did you found that company or were you part?
I would say, I think a better term would be a co-founder. So, you started a big operation, but I think initially, the idea of doing something like that was mine. I worked with a small team. We wrote a business plan for the creation of a new airline. I mean, what we saw was 12 airlines in Mexico that, in our view, none of them were doing a great job. They were high cost. They didn't have anything like what today would be like a Frontier or a Spirit. And so we got our fund to commit money to it, and then we raised some other money from a couple of wealthy Mexican billionaires, somebody from El Salvador, and we put $100 million into the business and started with 6 aircraft. Wow. Today, those 13 airlines are down to 3. We're now the largest with about 125 aircraft. And, it's the same management team in there running it. They're just fantastic. So, I'm really proud of it. I was, it was a little bit, the inspiration up front, but, all the hard work has been done by the team that's there now and the board that's overseeing them. So they've done a great job.
Super interesting. And obviously this is a franchise podcast, but, I like to go with the conversation, and I think people are generally pretty curious when it comes to all businesses. So, I know I'm sure it's incredibly complicated, but in a nutshell, how do you make money as an airline business? It's like you got your planes, you got a lot of gasoline and fuel you got to pay for, you got stewardesses, pilots. You said you started with 6 airplanes. That's not a lot. Right. I got to imagine United Airlines has hundreds, right?
Hundreds.
What's the name of the game? It's just the ticket sales on the planes have to, in aggregate, make more profit than you're spending on all that other stuff?
Yeah. So, I think we back up. When we wrote the plan, we were trying to understand why no one had been successful in Mexico. That was the first thing. And so we just had to figure that out. And the first thing we realized was that everybody was operating out of the Mexico City airport, which was an airport that was already full. So you couldn't really grow at all. And you need to be able to grow. So there was an airline that was west of the city. It looked like it would work well. So we worked with the government to have them work on that. We found a good management team. And then overall, at a high level, the strategy was we were going to be a low cost airline. And so your question, how do you make money in the airline industry? I think you can make it in a turnaround situation. I think you can make it as being a low cost provider. And that's really what we focus on. It's what Frontier focuses on, others. And that seems to work really well. And so what does that mean? It means having a common fleet of aircraft, a common pilot pool. Flight attendants can go from one aircraft to another. Same with the pilots. Your parts, the inventory that you need is consistent across aircraft today. We have eight Airbus family, A320s, 321s. And so, and then just having a really good team. that knows how to really execute. And so it's a tough industry though. And when you see things like last year when oil spiked and fuel spiked, that really hurts an airline like ours. But you know that's not going to be forever, and so you just weather that storm. And these guys have weathered a lot of storms over the time. But we're all over the U.S. now, all over Mexico, Central America, and down into South America. It's a great airlines, it is probably one of the top 2 or 3 lowest cost airlines in the world. So they've really done a great job. But it was fun. And it's been fun watching them continue to grow and execute. So 125 aircraft. They expect to double again over the next few years. So it's just going to be a great story. But compared to franchising, franchising is probably a lot more fun and a little bit easier to make money in.
Yeah. I would say, the capital outlay that you need to even start a airline business is obviously a lot higher than it's needed for the franchise industry. Well, yeah, and let's talk about that. So, I know, like, as part of, you launched Volaris, I know you did some work in private equity, but at a certain point, you end up acquiring a home services franchise. I think it was a pest control business, Mosquito Joe. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's almost the same question as you were working at Bain, you jumped into Benny's Bagels. What caused you to leave private equity and what I would imagine was a very well-paying job to acquiring a local pest control business?
Yeah, I think for me it was really wanted to get back into doing something on my own and running a business and growing and leading a team of a business. Yeah, in private equity, you're looking at a lot of different things. You're making some investments, and then you're sitting on the board of those companies and trying to help them. And it's very different than being in the trenches every day and trying to make it happen. And so got introduced to some guys that had started the company called Mosquito Joe. They had a couple trucks, a couple hundred customers, but the service was pretty cool. They come to your backyard, they spray. The stuff they spray adheres to the leaves and it gets rid of all the mosquitoes. Who won't like that? That seems like a pretty cool thing. So we worked a deal to buy the business. They stayed in as investors. We raised some money. I put a plan together. And, I guess that would be the one thing I'd say is that I spent a lot of time putting a very detailed plan together and really stressing the plan of how much money I was going to need to execute it, how many people I was going to need, what they were going to do. And then once I made the decision just to jump, I sort of never looked back. I never questioned the plan. I sort of just went right after it and executed, hired a great team. Many of them are still with me today. And then we just kept growing the business. We got some great franchisees, especially the initial franchisees we got early on, just some outstanding individuals. And we really felt like we were all in this together, and we grew it, and it took off. It really took off, and we were outgrowing our competitors 2-1, either new units, how well our franchisees were doing. We track everything too. So, we did a good job of using the data to help make decisions. And so it was quite a ride. It was a lot of fun.
Amazing. And you mentioned this plan. Did that plan include this, today Buzz has 4 franchise brands and we'll touch on all of them. But, was that plan that you initially wrote including that, or was it just Mosquito Joe?
It was just Mosquito Joe. When I raised money for the business from investors, I said, look, this is the plan. This is what I think is possible. I'm going to be an investor in this business myself, a big investor. But right now we're talking Mosquito Joe. In the back of my mind, I knew that if that went well, there were other models out there at the time, like Dwyer, now Neighborly, others that had multi-brand franchising companies. That was always in the back of my mind, but I knew that none of that would happen if we weren't successful with the first one. And so we just worked really hard at that. And then we did make a decision to say, we put our consultant hats on, and we said, why is Mosquito Joe being so successful? So that led us to say, okay, well, if we can do, we make pest control, fun, sexy, funny. We could probably do that with other service brands. And so we started looking at all the brands or all the services that a homeowner would receive. And then we went from there. But it was always just Mosquito Joe. And that was the plan, to make it big. And we wanted to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace too. We didn't want to be this brand that had mosquitoes flying all over their logo and everything, right? It was just, we wanted to be different.
Yeah. Well, so I know, I guess jumping around a bit.
Yeah.
Mosquito Joe got acquired, right? I think around 2018. Was that from, I guess, you as an entrepreneur? Obviously, an exit is exciting for a lot of reasons, but you know, it wasn't you weren't, you know, cashing out your chips and retiring, obviously, because you're still working today with 4 brands and whatnot. But I guess I'm asking, you know, was that a end of a chapter per se in the Buzz journey, in the sense that were you able to, I don't want to say free yourself, but you know, you had a liquidity event for your past investors. So were you able to then move forward, and it was like, and Buzz had the funds and resources already at that point to work within their own without any maybe complicated cap table attached to it?
Yeah. So yeah, good question. I mean, so just backing up, the decision to sell, you know, really came from those original meetings with my investors when I raised money. There was a commitment that I made to get money back to them over a 5 to 6 year period or so.
Okay.
And so I wanted to honor that commitment. I had to figure out, you know, how do I do that? You know, do I put debt on the business? I didn't really want to do that. Do I sell the whole company? I love what I'm doing. I didn't want to do that. So where we settled in, I had removed myself from managing the day-to-day activities of Mosquito Joe. And so we just carved Mosquito Joe off and had a dedicated team running it. The people that helped me get Mosquito Joe to where it was were already on the other side of the business, helping Cool Scouts and helping Heroes grow. So we ran a process. We found a great home with them, with Neighborly. They're experienced franchisors. They are private equity backed, but they're experienced franchisors that know how to run a business and treat franchisees. And so we felt like it was a really good combination. So, you know, so there was that liquidity event. And what it did is it freed me up from that commitment. We distributed some cash to the investors, and then we held back money to grow these other brands, and then ultimately acquire British Swim School and you know, looking at other opportunities. So it was a bittersweet decision, to be really honest. I mean, we were really close with those franchisees. It was difficult, the separation, simply because, you know, we were all in this together, and now we were going to go in different ways. But I felt like we handled it well. We're still close with those franchisees. Many of them have come back and are franchisees of other brands that we have now. So, but that was the tough part about it. But, you know, you have to do what, you know, you've said you would do and honor commitments that were made. And that's what we tried to do. And now we're back really in growth mode. And you're right. I mean, I love what I was doing. I never viewed this as, hey, I'm going to go hang out on a beach now for the rest of my life. You know, I like what I'm doing. And so I never wanted to do that. I think I'll never retire. I mean, I just sort of really like what I'm doing.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think, you know, I've had folks on here who at definitely varying levels of success and scope of taking on investments. But yeah, I just like to touch on it. I think it's always important for someone in that founder executive role to just consider, you know, there's trade-offs with taking on money, taking on investors, being able to kind of have your freedom if you're able to, you know, pay back those investors. So yeah, I appreciate all the insight you just gave us there. Yeah, and so looking at the Buzz portfolio today, I mean, I know you have, you know, for people listening, I'll just quickly go through the portfolio so we can kind of set the table here. You have Pool Scouts, you know, which is pool cleaning, maintenance, and repair services. British Swim School, which is effectively swim lessons, and even I would probably like broader water survival skills, right, for children, young children, and maybe even infants. Home Clean Heroes, a residential cleaning company, as well as the newest one, Grand Illuminations, so professional lighting for your home during the holidays. And I know from speaking with Angela on your team that you guys have plans to kind of turn that into a full year-round business for lighting purposes. So 3 out of the 4 are pretty clear cut. What I would categorize as like a home services franchise that businesses like lawn mowing and gutter cleaning and things of that nature, right? Like the 3 out of the 4 are in that realm.
Yeah.
British Swim School is obviously a bit different, but is there a common thread there that you saw with that one as far as like how it operates similarly to home services?
Yeah. So I think our strategy at Buzz really, we sort of identified at a very high level 3 areas that we're interested in. One is home services, as you've shared. We would throw British Swim School into what we would call the child enrichment areas, things where, you think about where people spend their money. A lot, they spend their money on homes, they spend their money on their kids and on their pets. And so those would be the 3 spaces we would want to have a presence in. We don't have anything on the pets right now. We're looking at a couple of opportunities in the child enrichment area. But when we saw British Swim School, what we saw was, a founder that was super passionate about what she had built, but she was really undercapitalized and under-resourced. And we just felt like we could really apply the toolkit that Buzz had developed and, bought the business. We were able to double the resources effectively overnight. And that business probably, by the end of this year, will have tripled under our ownership size. Not just in units grown, but just overall franchisees and how well they've done. So, it's a great business. I mean, the interesting part of that business, the franchisees are different, meaning they had it's a purpose-driven brand too. So people it's very fulfilling for them to be able to teach survival skills to infants with their parents and knowing that if anything wants to happen, that child, if they fell into the water, they're in a bathtub, they would know how to roll over on their back and survive. And it is a big, big issue in this country. And so,
wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, number 1 cause of death for children under the age of 5 is drowning. And
no way.
Yeah, it's a really big issue. And when we went through the pandemic, they shut down the pools. The pools for a period of time, anywhere from 6 months to a year, were shut down, which meant swim lessons were shut down, survival skill lessons were shut down, and it was a real problem. They're all open now. Kids are, but I would, anybody that's listening, if you've got a young child, a baby, find a place nearby and get them into schools. There's lots of them out there, but everybody needs to know how to swim and survive.
Yeah, I had no idea that would be the number 1 cause of death. Honestly, okay, well that's good to know for any parents listening to this.
Right.
I'm curious too on British Swim School in particular. There are, like you said, there's some other businesses out there doing this, but the model for British Swim School, I like from, I'm big on looking at the numbers, return on invested capital, all that good stuff. I like it. It's a capital light model, right? Yeah. Where you guys go in to towns, maybe even like, I don't know, local YMCAs or gyms with pools, and you kind of like rent them, I think.
Correct.
So you don't have to build your own pool is the bottom line. But there are franchises that similar concept in the sense that they teach water survival skills or swim lessons of sorts. However, it's you build your own facility and a massive pool, so it's a much higher capital investment. We're talking folks in the multiple millions of dollars build outs for those franchises,
sure.
Whereas British Swim School is coming in at a much lower investment level if you wanted to get up and running. So, I guess you want to talk to maybe the benefits of that model and why you choose. I know you acquired it from the founder, but I imagine there's probably a lot of things that you like about that kind of model where you don't have to build the asset itself. You can kind of utilize existing facilities.
Yeah, there's a lot of, that was one of the things that attracted to us, where it was consistent with our other businesses we own, was the low investment level. And you're right, we do have competitors in the swim lesson space that build pools, $2 to $3 million usually they spend. It takes longer to get open, find a property. But they do have their own water, but it is a significant investment. Our view has always been that there's enough water out there that's underutilized right now. Like, think of the last time you go to a hotel. Do you ever see anybody in the pool? Right? It almost is always empty. And there's all these the hotels are building, they got pools, or fitness centers. And all we need is a lane. We don't even need the full pool. We need a lane. And, instructor typically will have 4 kids. We come in, we pop a tent up. It's the changing tent that's on deck. The child is there with their parent. Child can go into the tent, change, come out, jump into the water, and start the lesson. So it's super simple. We do have some franchisees that over time have built up a really good brand in their community, and an opportunity came to convert a pool. But even converting a pool that they can up, it's a few $100,000, $500,000 or $600,000. It's not the millions. Yep. So I just like those. I mean, you're literally fishing in different pools, if you will. Like when we're recruiting franchisees, it's a completely different type of individual that can afford to do what we're doing as opposed to doing that large capital investment. And some of them are doing very well. The big guys are doing very well, but we're in probably 350 pools. I think we're probably the largest by the number of pools that we're in. So, which ultimately the goal is to reach as many people as possible and teach them how to survive in the water, and do that with some great local business owners. And so we've got a lot of great owners in that business.
Yeah, no, and you are, for folks wondering, British Swim School is the largest swim school franchise. You can check that out on Crockett.com. So self-plug for my little software platform that we launched that helps researching franchises. But yeah, you would see that on Crockett, folks, if you checked it out. But yeah, so moving back to, I guess, I also want to say too, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine, well, you guys might know because you have pool scouts to repair and maintain pools for people. I got to imagine the upkeep on a pool, especially we're talking about massive size pool. there's a lot of plumbing. It's a totally different, it brings so many new elements to the business that, like you said, you're renting out hotel pools for, multiple times a week or whatever it is. You do your classes and you leave. It's a lot different than, if that pool is an issue, you're the one on the phone who has to fix it. It's just a totally different ballgame.
Completely different ballgame. Pools are like owning a boat. There's something's always breaking on it. It's why our other business is works well, where we know that. I think our pool cleaning business, at least, I think the numbers are 25% of all pools every year have something that breaks on them that needs to be fixed. So yeah, it's a simple model. It's a great team. It's a large sales and marketing type company, but great instruction too. Really, really good curriculum.
Yeah. And just you mentioned like your franchisee base lightly. I want to kind of give people an idea of, because if you buy into a franchise brand, just a singular brand that's maybe not a part of a platform like Buzz Franchise Brands, right? You live your life with that franchisor and whatever support team they have, and that's kind of it. But if I buy into one of Buzz's brands, I imagine you have, or you do, I know from, again, speaking with Angela prior to this on your team, but there's brand specific personnel effectively, right? But like, what is I don't know what we want to call it, the Buzz impact, the Buzz effect, where, are you guys kind of overseeing the personnel? And I know you have a bit of a shared services model, but can you kind of paint that picture so people understand
so each business we own, we set it up individually. It's separately capitalized. It'll have a president of the business. It'll have a leadership team, which would be a director of marketing, a director of operations, probably a director of any type of technical, and then it'll have a series of coaches, franchise business coaches, marketing support, and that is the standalone entities that work with the franchisees day to day. And then, as you mentioned, we do have that shared services platform. The best way to think about that is wherever there was commonality in our businesses, we created a vertical that really helped them. So in the marketing, as an example, you mentioned Angela, she oversees this for us, but that it's like an in-house agency with a lot of functional experts. So we got digital experts, direct mail, videography, blogging, content development, all experts that can cut across those brands. And so, from a franchisee's perspective, they'll get, say, British Swim School, 17 dedicated individuals for that brand. And then there's another 15 or so that are also supporting the brand from the shared services. The analytics platform that we have is pretty strong. That's probably, if people were talking about a Buzz brand, what's different?
Yeah.
One would be the marketing. and the support that we provide. And then the other one would be the analytic rigor that we take to looking at the business and helping franchisees with decision making. And, we don't own any of our software. It's all cloud-based, but we use a business intelligence tool that really helps us hone in on how the business is doing. And if it's not doing well, we can really course correct very quickly. So it's a great tool. So those are and then training is the third vertical that we have, which is, our learning management system, sharing good content, and developing good content. So, but it's a powerful brand, powerful support structure for the franchisees. Ultimately, our success, the whole model, I mean, for this is where, it should be this way for franchising. And I think it's gotten off the rails sometimes, but our model is the only way we're going to be successful is if our franchisees are successful. So that's a big deal.
No, I completely agree. I love the kind of value alignment there. And I also think it's really interesting and very beneficial that you're able to provide like business coaches for your franchisees. Something I've noticed in researching and speaking to so many franchises over the last few years is that many franchises, they do an adequate, a good enough job on training someone how to run the business, but that's different than like training them how to be a business owner. Right. So yeah, I love that you kind of have that built into the support structure. I'm curious too about I've looked at the numbers, and if folks subscribe to the Wolf Report, you received the deep dive on Buzz Franchise Brands that kind of broke down all the numbers. I mean, everything, as Kevin said, it's lower capital investment franchises. They're very transparent in their FTDs, which is why I was happy to cover them and dive in, and the numbers all show really good, potential for, what your potential returns could be. Grand Illuminations, I know, they, again, like Home Clean Heroes, Pool Scouts, they all look like great businesses. I am curious about Grand Illuminations though. So a holiday lighting business, and that's your most recent kind of, let's call it venture. Yeah. Is that meant to be just like an add-on in that where, hey, in the holiday season, you can make some extra revenue? Because there are businesses that they churn out a lot of revenue in the month of December, and then you're off the rest of the year basically. Or is that going to be, do you think that could be a more year-round lighting business of sorts?
Yeah, I think the initial thought was it could be both over time, but let's just focus in initially on that holiday season. And we went about developing this brand or incubating this business a little bit differently. And we started with, right out of the gate, 14 franchisees. They were franchisees of our other brands, specifically Pool Scouts, Mosquito Joe, and then I think one or two from British Swim School. But really, the idea was, and I think you're pointing this out, in our seasonal businesses, they would typically have to lay off their technicians, the October, November timeframe, and then hire them back up against February. This really helps bridge the shoulder season. And so we were able to, I think, recruit some of the best franchisees we know of how to run businesses, and they launched with us last season, and it went great. It's a great business. People pay you a lot of money to hang lights on their gutters and their roof line. Yeah. And I think over time it will evolve into other seasonal type offerings, special events type offerings, and then we'll open it up to more broadly other people that are interested in doing this. That might not even have a franchise now. So we just started initially with people that we really knew well, and they really helped us think through a lot of the details of the business, including who's the guy that's going to go up the ladder. I didn't even know that was a thing. I spent summers painting homes and shingling roofs, and running up and down a ladder was just part of the deal. And but apparently there's a lot of people that don't like getting up on ladders. So.
Before I got deep into franchise, I was in the HVAC world, so spent some time on roofs, both houses and commercial buildings, and I had to go up the ladders, but I did not like it. I won't sign myself up for that again. Look, this has been a fun conversation, Kevin. I think just wrapping up here, I'm curious. One last question is, what is the if you even have it. I mean, it sounds like you guys are having fun and you've had consistent, steady growth. And I like the fact that it's responsible growth. I don't want to, I'm not going to paint a broad stroke on other multi-brand platforms. I think it's always, in a way, it's encouraging to see when multi-brand platforms grow and add more brands. But at the same time, for me, there's always the concern of, well, how are they able to continue supporting all their franchisees as they just add more and more to the system rapidly, right? I think anyone listening, you should be asking that question if you are looking at a franchise that maybe is a part of a broader platform in that scenario. But so with that said, I mean, just I guess kudos to the responsible growth, but also, do you have a specific plan, vision? Like, do you have a goal, a North Star for Buzz and how many brands or how many franchisees that you want to get to one day?
No, not really. I mean, we've got some internal goals that we've set out that are not, it's maybe adding a new business every year, every 18 months, but also not being in a position where we're forced to do something that we don't want to do, or if it's not attractive to us. So, we have bigger goals for the businesses that we currently own. And one of the hallmarks of all of our businesses is really significant year-over-year growth, and not just adding franchisees, but same-store sale growth. Driving the growth of our franchisees, and that's a really, really important thing for us. We talk more about that than we do other businesses. We've got a team that looks for businesses to buy, but that's more important than anything else for us. So I think that's really what we're, and then there's no, I'm pretty young still. I mean, I feel young, so I'm playing this for a while. We've got a young team and a great team that's been with us for a long time. So we can do this for a while. So no final thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I mean, again, I love the value alignment. It's actually rare that I hear that someone's focusing on same store, sales growth amidst the existing franchisee base. I get it. Like, franchising is a growth game, a narrative game in a lot of ways. So people do need to focus on new units, new franchisees. But a lot of times that becomes the only focus. And that's where usually the problems start coming into play, is when existing franchisees aren't getting the support and the attention. And,
absolutely.
So I love what you guys are doing. With that in mind, is there anywhere online where people can either follow you or learn more about Buzz Franchise Brands?
Yeah, we're all over social. For me personally, LinkedIn is probably the best place. It's Kevin Wilson with Buzz Franchise Brands. We also have a Buzz Franchise Brands LinkedIn page. You can follow that. And then our webpage is buzzfranchisebrands.com, and you can go there to see all this stuff. But yeah, I'd love to. We're constantly posting and keeping people updated on how the businesses are going. So this has been great. I really appreciate you, inviting me on the show.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, Kevin. I know you got a flight to catch, so we'll let you go. Kevin's going on vacation, everyone. So he was nice enough to do the podcast before doing that. But yeah, thanks again, Kevin. And hopefully we talk soon.
Sounds great. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Empires. We're coming to you soon with actionable insights to take the next step on your franchise journey. So make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen.